My name is Sarah. And this is the story of how the man I loved more than anyone on earth turned into a stranger. A stranger who chose money, pride, and his past over his own child. But it's also the story of how I made him pay, slowly, quietly, and completely. I met Daniel 12 years ago. He was everything I thought a man should be: successful, confident, and kind. He ran a small investment company back then, always wearing that same calm smile that made me feel safe. I was a nurse, working long night shifts, trying to take care of my sick mother. He came into my life like a blessing. We fell in love fast. He promised me a life of peace and security. And for a while, he gave me that. When our son Ethan was born, it felt like our little family was perfect. Daniel adored him, at least, that's what I thought. Then, when Ethan turned 5, everything changed. He started having shortness of breath, chest pain. The diagnosis hit like a bullet. He had a rare heart condition. The doctors said surgery could save him, but it would cost $85,000. $85,000. To Daniel, that was nothing. He'd spent more than that on a watch before. So, I wasn't worried. I believed any father would do anything to save his son. I was wrong. When I told him about the cost, he said he'd handle it, but days passed. Then weeks. The hospital called, asking when we'd make the payment. Daniel kept saying, soon. He avoided the hospital. He avoided me. He stopped picking up my calls when I was there with Ethan. I thought he was overwhelmed. I tried to stay calm. Until the day my best friend sent me a photo that destroyed me. It was a picture of Daniel, at a wedding. In a tuxedo. Smiling. Laughing. Holding a champagne glass. At first, I thought it was a business event. But then I looked closer. He wasn't just a guest. He was at his ex-girlfriend's wedding. And not only that, he had paid for it. Every last detail. The venue. The catering. The flowers. Even her dress. Over $230,000. I confronted him that night. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely unlock the door. He didn't deny it. He looked straight at me and said, "It was just business, don't overreact." "Business?" I shouted. "Our son is dying, and you're out there funding your ex's wedding?" He just sighed. Then he said words that I'll never forget for as long as I live. "Ethan's condition is unfortunate, but we can't throw money at every problem. It's not a smart investment." That was the moment something inside me snapped. It was like watching the person you love turn into a monster right before your eyes. He went to bed that night like nothing happened. But I stayed awake. And I promised myself, he would regret those words. The next morning, I played my part. I smiled. I cooked. I told him I understood. He believed me. He always underestimated me, but behind that calm face, I was planning everything. Daniel's weakness wasn't women. It wasn't money. It was pride. He lived for admiration, for the image of success. He was the man who donated to charities only if someone would take his photo. The man who loved being called an inspiration. So I decided to destroy the image he built his whole life around. I began collecting evidence, every message, every email, every transaction. I took screenshots of his texts to his ex, where he bragged about investing in her husband's startup. I found fake invoices, money transfers hidden under shell companies. He had used company funds for personal expenses. All of it illegal. And I kept digging. The more I found, the more disgusted I became. I saved everything on a flash drive, then made multiple copies. One for me, one for the media, and one for his business partners. Then came the right moment. He told me he was going on a business trip. But I knew exactly where he was going, on a yacht, celebrating that same ex-girlfriend's honeymoon. While he was away, I struck. I sent the evidence to his investors, the financial regulators, and a few journalists. Then I sent one more email, from an anonymous address. It said, "The man you admire has been using your trust to fund his ex's lifestyle while refusing to save his dying son. It took less than 24 hours for everything to crumble. His accounts were frozen. His investors pulled out. The news spread online like wildfire. By the time he came back, his business was collapsing. I was gone. He called me dozens of times. I didn't answer. He drove to my mother's house, pounding on the door, shouting my name. I didn't open it. I just left him a letter in the mailbox. It said, 'You said Ethan wasn't a good investment. I hope losing everything was worth it.' And I left. I used what little savings I had to fly Ethan to another city where a charity hospital agreed to help. The surgery was long and risky. For hours, I sat outside, praying. I thought I'd lost him. But when the doctor came out smiling and said, 'He made it,' I broke down. Ethan lived. And Daniel's empire burned to the ground. He lost everything, his company, his reputation, his so-called friends. Even his ex turned on him once the money stopped flowing. Months later, he sent me one last message. He said, 'I made a mistake. I'll spend the rest of my life making it right.' I never replied. Because some mistakes don't deserve forgiveness. 3 years have passed. Ethan is healthy now. He's 8, curious, and full of life. Sometimes he asks where his dad is. I tell him his father made choices that hurt people, and we're safer now. At night, when I sit by his bed and watch him breathe, I think about how far we've come. People always say revenge doesn't bring peace. Maybe that's true. But justice? Justice brings silence. And that silence feels like peace to me. Daniel thought he could buy love. He thought emotions were investments and people were assets. But he forgot one thing. Some women don't beg. They rebuild. And when we rebuild, we make sure the ones who broke us never stand again.